Have you ever felt that quiet discomfort in your chest? The moment when something felt off but you ignored it because you didn't want to lose the connection? That feeling is not weakness. It is awareness trying to protect you. Most people are not destroyed by one big mistake. They are slowly drained by small moments they chose to overlook. Red flags do not appear to scare you. They appear to test whether you respect yourself enough to listen. And the truth is, the cost of ignoring them is always higher than the pain of walking away early. You are never meant to feel confused in love. Confusion is not passion. Anxiety is not attraction. Yet many people mistake emotional instability for depth because the brain bonds harder when things feel uncertain. Psychology proves this. When affection is unpredictable, your nervous system stays alert. That alertness feels intense, even exciting. But intensity is not intimacy. It is your mind chasing relief. The more you tolerate inconsistency, the more your standards quietly lower. You begin to explain behavior that should never need explaining. You begin to bargain with your own boundaries. And slowly, without noticing, you start losing the version of yourself that once felt strong, grounded, and clear. This is where everything changes. Awareness is the moment you stop trying to earn what should be given freely. Red flags are not personal attacks. They are information. They reveal how someone handles respect, accountability, and emotional safety. When you ignore them, you send a message to your own mind that your needs come last. Over time, that message becomes your identity. You start believing love requires endurance. You start believing peace is boring. You start believing that being chosen means tolerating discomfort. None of that is true. Real connection does not demand self-betrayal. It does not ask you to stay silent to keep someone close. There is a powerful shift that happens when you choose clarity over attachment. The moment you stop romanticizing potential and start observing patterns, you reclaim your power. Patterns never lie. Words can be crafted, apologies can be performed, promises can sound beautiful. But patterns reveal truth. When behavior consistently crosses emotional lines, it is not misunderstanding, it is choice. And you do not need more time to understand what is already hurting you. You need courage to trust yourself. If you stay with this message, something important will happen. You will begin to see red flags not as threats but as guidance. You will feel stronger instead of guilty for wanting respect. You will realize that walking away from what drains you creates space for what strengthens you. This is not about becoming cold or guarded. It is about becoming grounded. When you learn to listen early, you avoid years of confusion later. And by the end of this, you will no longer question whether leaving is too much. You will understand that staying too long was the real risk. When you start honoring that inner signal, you also start noticing how disrespect often hides behind a smile. It doesn't arrive loudly, it slips in softly, a joke that cuts a little too deep, a comment that makes you doubt yourself, followed by laughter so you feel wrong for reacting. This is not harmless humor, it is a test. Psychology calls it boundary testing because it measures how much you will tolerate before you speak up. Each time you brush it aside, the line moves. What once felt uncomfortable becomes normal, and what becomes normal slowly becomes damaging. Pay close attention to how you feel after these moments, not what you tell yourself, but what your body feels. Tightness, unease, a need to explain yourself. Disrespect always leaves a residue. It teaches you to shrink just enough to keep peace, and once shrinking becomes habit, confidence starts leaking out quietly. Real attraction never requires self-erasure. Real chemistry does not ask you to swallow discomfort to keep someone comfortable. Control often arrives wearing the mask of care. It sounds like concern, it looks like protection, but underneath it is fear-seeking authority. When someone monitors who you talk to, questions your independence, or frames jealousy as love, that is not devotion. That is insecurity demanding compliance. Healthy connection expands your world. Control narrows it. Research shows controlling behavior does not fade with reassurance. It grows with access. The more you adjust to avoid conflict, the more control tightens. Love rooted in fear always tries to manage outcomes instead of building trust. Another warning sign appears when accountability disappears, when every disagreement somehow becomes your fault, when your feelings are flipped back onto you. This is emotional deflection. It protects the ego by avoiding responsibility, but relationships cannot grow without accountability. When someone refuses to reflect, change becomes impossible. You are not meant to carry the emotional weight for two people. You are not meant to translate your pain into something more palatable so it can be accepted. Respect does not require perfect delivery. It requires willingness to listen. Notice how boundaries are received. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They are information about how to treat you. When someone reacts with guilt, anger, or punishment after you express a limit, the message is clear: they valued access over respect. A secure person adjusts, an insecure person resists. The difference matters. Silent treatment, withdrawal, and emotional pressure are not communication tools. They are control strategies designed to restore dominance. Love never needs leverage. This is where strength is built, not in endurance, but in discernment. The moment you stop negotiating your worth, your nervous system begins to calm. You realize peace feels lighter than constant explanation. You realize stability does not kill attraction. It deepens it. When you no longer excuse behavior that contradicts your values, your self-trust grows. And self-trust changes everything. It sharpens your perception. It steadies your decisions. It makes walking away feel less like loss and more like alignment. Staying aware protects your future. The earlier you recognize these patterns, the less damage they do. You are not here to prove loyalty by tolerating disrespect. You are here to build connection rooted in mutual regard. The moment you choose yourself, you don't lose love. You lose confusion. And what replaces it is clarity, strength, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you will never abandon yourself again. As your awareness sharpens, another pattern becomes impossible to ignore, and it lives in inconsistency. One day you feel chosen. The next day you feel invisible. Attention arrives in waves, then disappears without explanation. This is not mystery. This is emotional unpredictability, and it is one of the strongest psychological hooks the mind can experience. The brain releases dopamine when rewards are uncertain, not when they are steady. That chemical spike is why inconsistency feels addictive. You are not falling deeper in love. You are chasing relief from withdrawal. Hot and cold behavior keeps you focused on winning approval instead of observing reality. You replay conversations. You wait for messages. You adjust your tone to avoid distance. Slowly, your emotional center moves outside of you. This is not connection. It is conditioning. When affection becomes a reward you must earn, self-respect becomes the price. Real desire does not fluctuate based on your compliance. Real interest does not require you to guess where you stand. Emotional unavailability often hides behind charm and intensity. Deep conversations appear early, but depth never stabilizes. Promises feel exciting, but actions never align. You are given just enough vulnerability to stay invested, but never enough consistency to feel secure. Psychology shows emotionally unavailable people crave validation without intimacy. They enjoy being wanted but resist being known. When closeness increases, distance follows. When you pull away, attention returns. This push-pull dynamic is not coincidence. It is a defense against emotional exposure. Pay attention to what happens when things begin to matter. Do communication patterns change when you express needs? Does effort drop once attachment forms? Avoidance is not always loud. Sometimes it sounds like being busy. Sometimes it looks like distraction. Sometimes it feels like you are slowly becoming less of a priority without explanation. When clarity disappears, anxiety grows, and anxiety is the mind's response to instability, not love. Another subtle manipulation is future-focused language without present commitment. Dreams are discussed, plans are imagined, but behavior remains unchanged. This creates attachment to potential rather than reality. The mind bonds to what could be faster than what is. That bond keeps you invested in waiting instead of observing. But consistency is the only proof of intention. Words without follow-through are emotional currency designed to buy time, not build trust. Notice how you feel in your body. Are you calm or constantly alert? Do you feel grounded or always on edge? Secure connection soothes the nervous system. Inconsistent connection activates it. When love feels like emotional suspense, your system never rests. Over time, this erodes confidence and clarity. You begin to accept less because you are afraid of losing more. But what you are actually losing is yourself. Here is the shift that changes everything. You stop asking why they behave this way, and you start asking how it makes you feel over time. Patterns matter more than explanations. If someone truly values you, effort becomes consistent, communication becomes clear, interest becomes stable. Attraction does not need chaos to survive. It thrives in safety. When you choose consistency over intensity, you choose peace over pressure. You choose growth over attachment. You choose a future that does not require emotional endurance. The moment you stop chasing unpredictable affection, your power returns. And with that power comes discernment, strength, and the ability to walk away from confusion without guilt, because clarity is not cold, it is kind. And choosing stability is not settling, it is respecting the life you are building. As you begin choosing stability over chaos, another truth becomes clear, and it strikes deep. The presence or absence of empathy changes everything. Empathy is not a bonus trait. It is the foundation of emotional safety. When someone consistently dismisses your feelings, minimizes your concerns, or tells you that you are overreacting, something critical is missing. Emotional invalidation teaches you to doubt your own experience. Over time, you stop trusting your reactions. You start filtering your emotions to avoid conflict. And slowly, you disconnect from yourself to stay connected to someone else. Pay attention to how your vulnerability is treated. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is trust. When what you share later becomes ammunition, empathy has already been replaced by power. Psychology shows that people who lack empathy often struggle with long-term emotional bonding. They may understand emotions intellectually, but they do not feel them deeply. This creates relationships where control replaces care. Understanding replaces compassion. Logic replaces presence. And you are left feeling unseen, even when you are heard. Another warning sign appears in how conflict is handled. Healthy disagreement aims for understanding. Power-driven conflict aims to win. If every conversation turns into a debate, if apologies feel rare or conditional, connection slowly erodes. When being right matters more than being kind, intimacy dies quietly. Love cannot survive in an environment where ego leads and empathy follows. The need to dominate conversations, control narratives, or rewrite reality is not strength. It is insecurity protecting itself. Watch closely when you express a boundary. Boundaries are not demands, they are clarity. When someone responds with anger, guilt, or withdrawal, they are not responding to the boundary. They are responding to the loss of control. Respectful people adapt. Controlling people resist. And resistance often looks like punishment. Silence becomes a weapon. Distance becomes a threat. Affection becomes conditional. These are not misunderstandings, they are strategies designed to restore power. Silent treatment is not space, it is emotional pressure. It forces you to question yourself, to apologize just to restore peace, even when you did nothing wrong. Over time, this creates fear around honesty. You begin to self-edit. You begin to walk on emotional landmines. When expression feels dangerous, connection is already compromised. Love should not feel like something you have to survive. Your nervous system always knows before your mind accepts it. Anxiety around communication is a signal. Tension before speaking is a warning. Emotional safety allows disagreement without threat. It allows difference without distance. When safety disappears, your body responds with alertness, not trust. That response is not imagination, it is information. This is where inner strength deepens. You realize that empathy cannot be negotiated. It cannot be earned through patience or sacrifice. It must exist naturally. No amount of explaining will create it where it does not live, and staying in environments without empathy slowly reshapes you into someone you are not meant to become. Someone quieter, smaller, less expressive, less alive. Choosing yourself at this level is not about anger or blame, it is about alignment. When you honor your emotional reality, you stop settling for emotional crumbs. You stop confusing tolerance with loyalty. You stop accepting power games as passion. And something powerful happens. Your sense of self returns. You speak more clearly, you breathe more freely. You feel less guarded because you are no longer forcing connection where safety does not exist. Empathy is not rare. It is simply incompatible with control. And the moment you decide you will only stay where empathy lives, you raise your standards without apology. You begin building relationships that nourish instead of drain. And in doing so, you protect not just your heart, but your future. When empathy is missing, another pattern often sits right beneath the surface, shaping everything without being obvious at first. It is the mindset that nothing is ever their responsibility. Every problem has an external villain. Every past relationship ended because the other person was wrong. Every conflict becomes proof that the world is unfair to them. This constant victim stance may sound like vulnerability, but psychologically it is avoidance. It removes accountability and blocks growth. And where growth is blocked, the relationship cannot move forward, no matter how much effort you give. Pay attention to how responsibility is handled. Growth requires reflection. It requires the ability to say, I played a role in this. When that sentence never appears, patterns repeat endlessly. Research shows that people who stay locked in victim identity often resist change because change threatens the story that protects their ego. If everything is always happening to them, then nothing is required from them. And slowly you become the one carrying the emotional weight, fixing problems you didn't create, and absorbing blame you don't deserve. Another warning sign reveals itself through a constant attraction to chaos. Drama becomes the emotional fuel. Calm feels empty. Stability feels uncomfortable. When peace arrives, it is disrupted. Arguments appear over small things. Tension is created without clear reason. This is not passion. It is nervous system addiction. Some people grow up associating intensity with connection, so when life becomes quiet, they feel disconnected. To feel alive, they recreate turmoil. But chaos does not build bonds, it burns them. Watch how growth is treated. When you suggest improvement, is it met with curiosity or defensiveness? When you express needs, are they heard or dismissed? Resistance to growth often hides behind phrases like, "This is just who I am." But psychology shows that identity-based excuses block emotional evolution. Everyone grows when they choose to. When someone refuses, they are choosing comfort over progress. And if you keep growing while they remain stuck, distance becomes inevitable. Another subtle drain is emotional dependence, masked as closeness. You become the regulator of moods, the stabilizer, the one who must stay strong so everything doesn't fall apart. This creates imbalance. Support becomes sacrifice. Compassion becomes self-neglect. Over time, you stop asking for what you need because it feels like too much. But relationships are not meant to survive on one person's strength. Mutual effort is not optional. It is essential. Ask yourself honestly how you feel after repeated interactions. Energized or exhausted, clear or confused, hopeful or heavy. Your body keeps score. When you constantly feel drained, something is wrong. Love should challenge you to grow, not trap you in cycles of repair. When you are always fixing, rescuing, or explaining, you are not building a future. You are maintaining a pattern. This is where courage takes a new form. Not loud, not dramatic, quiet and firm. You stop trying to save something that resists healing. You stop believing that patience alone will transform someone who avoids responsibility. You realize that alignment matters more than attachment, that shared direction matters more than shared history. Growth cannot be one-sided. Choosing to step back from chaos is not abandonment. It is self-preservation. You are allowed to want ease. You are allowed to want progress. You are allowed to want a partner who evolves with you instead of pulling you backward. When you choose environments that support growth, your energy returns. Your clarity sharpens. Your standards rise naturally. And in that space, something powerful becomes clear. You are never asking for too much. You are simply asking the wrong person. When you fully accept that truth, something inside you settles. You stop arguing with reality. You stop trying to make potential feel like proof. And this is where the most powerful decision appears. The decision to walk away without needing permission, validation, or a dramatic reason. Walking away is not rejection. It is self-alignment. It is the moment you choose long-term peace over short-term attachment. The brain resists leaving familiar pain because it knows it. Even discomfort can feel safer than uncertainty. Psychology calls this loss aversion. The mind fears losing what it has more than it desires what it could gain. That fear keeps people stuck in situations that slowly diminish them. But the fear fades the moment action is taken. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move despite it. And every time you honor yourself, your nervous system learns a new truth. You are safe choosing yourself. Walking away does not mean you failed. It means you listened. It means you respected the information you were given. Red flags are not mistakes to overcome. They are signals to respond to. The strongest people are not those who endure the most. They are those who leave the fastest when respect disappears. Self-respect is quiet, but it is powerful. It changes how you show up everywhere, in relationships, in work, in life. When you stop tolerating emotional instability, something remarkable happens. Your standards recalibrate. You no longer feel drawn to chaos because your body no longer associates it with excitement. Calm starts to feel attractive, consistency feels reassuring, effort feels natural. You begin to recognize that love is not supposed to be painful, confusing, or draining. It is supposed to feel supportive, clear, and steady. This realization alone can save you years of struggle. There is also a deeper reward waiting here. Trust in yourself. When you walk away from what disrespects you, you rebuild self-trust brick by brick. And self-trust is magnetic. It changes how others treat you because it changes what you accept. People sense when your boundaries are firm. They sense when you no longer negotiate your worth. This is not about becoming rigid or closed off. It is about becoming grounded. You are allowed to leave situations that cost you your peace. You are allowed to choose calm over chemistry that hurts. You are allowed to say no without explaining your entire history. Closure is not something someone gives you. It is something you choose when you stop reopening wounds for answers that never come. The need to explain fades when you understand that your well-being is reason enough. Loneliness may whisper lies in moments of separation. It may tell you that staying would have been easier. But loneliness passes. Regret stays. Regret shows up years later when you realize you abandoned yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Choosing yourself now protects the future version of you. The version who wants stability, the version who wants peace, the version who wants a love that does not require survival skills. This is not about fear of commitment. It is about commitment to self-respect. The right connection will not demand that you prove your value through tolerance. It will meet you where you stand. Clear, present, willing. Until then, walking away is not loss. It is preparation. Preparation for a life where your energy is returned, your voice is safe, and your heart is no longer at war with your instincts. Strength is not staying to see how much you can endure. Strength is knowing when to leave, trusting yourself fully, and never shrinking again to fit where you were never meant to belong.